You're listening to Afternoons on FNR, Football Nation Radio with Adriano de Monte and Rick D'Andrea.
Hello and welcome to Afternoons here on FNR Football Nation Radio. It's very good to be back. Looking forward to a big show in store off the back of the second leg of the UEFA Champions League. Two enormous results. You feel well. Changing results in terms of where some big clubs are at. Real Madrid and Borussia Dortmund incredibly out of the UEFA Champions League. Tottenham and Ajax progress to the quarterfinals of the competition. We will provide you our in-depth analysis as to what took place in those two matches very shortly, as well as looking ahead to the two matches tomorrow morning as well. 4 of the 8 quarterfinalists will be confirmed. Of course, myself, Adriano Del Monte, and Rick D'Andrea here with you for the next couple of hours, streaming live via our app and our website, footballnationradio.com, and via Facebook Live in this first hour. Good afternoon to you all. And Rick, good afternoon. Good to be back.
Good afternoon. Welcome back. And there's only one word really to describe this morning's actions in the UEFA Champions League. Huge!
It's a big
word. Probably the only way to say it.
Enormous. As I said, it really is a changing of the guard.
End of an era.
End of an era. Real Madrid, having won the last 3, they're now out. It's confirmed. End of an era is something that we will explore very shortly because, well, we certainly saw this coming. And I think many saw this coming, not necessarily against Ajax, but the end would be this season, given the departure, of course, of a couple of key figures last season. So maybe surprising that Ajax have been the team to finally end this run of Real Madrid, but plenty to discuss. But let's recap the big stories, the scores, of course, and plenty more before getting into the analysis as Real Madrid bow out.
Have some water whilst I go through the headlines, and I'll start with that big result. Ajax have come back from 2-1 down in the first leg to advance against Real Madrid in the round of 16 in the UEFA Champions League. The Dutch Giants defeated the 3-time reigning holders 4-1 at the Santiago Bernabeu and 5-3 on aggregate. Dusan Tadic was the star with a goal and 2 assists, but Lasse Schöne, Hakim Ziyech and Daniel Neres also found the back of the net for Ajax. Tottenham, they haven't been spoken about too much just yet, but they will very shortly. They've made it 4 wins in a row against Borussia Dortmund and also advanced through to the quarterfinals of the UCL, winning 1-0 at Signal Iduna Park. Harry Kane getting the match winner to see Spurs advance through to the final 8 of the tournament for the first time. And there was also another match. Didn't get as much notice this time around in the early hours of this morning, but it was played in Ligue 1, and Montpellier have ended their 5-game winless streak by defeating Bordeaux at home 2-1. Paul Larsen and Daniel Congre gave Montpellier the win with goals in each half and see them climb up and stay in contention for a European spot. Joachim Low. We'll talk about him very soon as well. He has announced that defenders Mats Hummels and Jerome Boateng and forward Thomas Müller will not be a part of his German national team plans going forward. Historic moment here. Die Mannschaft have revealed that it is an end of an era as well, that time has occurred as they prepare to qualify for the 2020 European Championships. This is on the back of a horror 2018, which of course saw the then reigning World Cup winners eliminated at the group stage of the FIFA World Cup and be relegated into League B of the UEFA Nations League. FIFA has confirmed that Chelsea's appeal against their transfer ban has been received, though no decision has been taken on freezing their sanction due to the legal process. Chelsea categorically deny claims that they were involved in transferring and registering 29 players under the age of 18 and were given a 2-transfer window ban as well as fined £460,000. La Liga has confirmed that they will be scrapping the Monday night matches from next season in preference for more Sunday matches. Games have been widely unpopular this time around, with fans staging protests during them, in particular Rayo Vallecano and Alaves. 2 to go. Almost there. Here's one for Liverpool supporters. Alex Oxlade-Chamberlain. He's set to play his first match since injuring and rupturing his knee last season and missing out on a year's worth of football. The midfielder is set to play in the Liverpool under-23 side this weekend with the aim of returning to first-team action by the end of the season. And finally, Liverpool also happen to play Bayern Munich in the Champions League next week, and winger Serge Gnabry has signed a contract extension with the Bavarian club until June 2023. Adrian, as Matt has also said on our Facebook Live, welcome back to you, because there is so much to talk about.
Well done. That was very in-depth as promised. Let's get into the UEFA Champions League action before touching on some of those other stories later on. The German one, incredible. That has really gone under the radar given what's taking place in Europe this morning. But Jogi Löw all but ending the careers of three legends of German football in Hummels, Boateng and Müller. More on that to come.
He should have gone further.
He should have gone further, I agree. We'll touch on that more later on. But the German national team back in action, of course, in a couple of weeks. There is international football upon us.
2020 is around the corner in terms of qualifiers.
A lot to come. But yeah, I agree. He should have gone further. But we will explore that later on.
The one who wears one of these across his left arm at the moment.
Save it for later, Rick.
Will do.
Don't be too ruthless. There was one match in Germany this morning. Borussia Dortmund up against Tottenham. We're going to save that because Real Madrid is the biggest story of the morning. Real Madrid 1, Ajax 4. Unbelievable result as Ajax score 4 at the Bernabeu. Unbelievable given the historical references, of course, but let's look at this on the surface. If you were to look at this match, given where Real Madrid are at the moment, and take the Real Madrid shirt off these players, sure, they're all superstars in their own right, but nowhere near it this season is where they've been. And now they will all but end the season without a piece of domestic silverware. Of course, Club World Cup winners in December, but that will be that for them. And, well, Solari, what does the future hold? What does the future hold for these players? A couple of players who are on the outer not featuring in this match. There are a number of elements that we will explore in great depth very shortly. But on the whole, Rick, Ajax 5, Real Madrid 3 on aggregate. We saw it coming when the draw was done. We really said that this, if there was to be a surprise, this was the one here. And, well, not even Ajax would have dreamt this, but a 4-1 win at the Bernabeu. Looking at this 90 minutes just in isolation, an incredible result, but well-deserved by the Dutch side.
Erik ten Hag has nailed his 180 minutes across both legs, but in particular, he got it exactly right at the Santiago Bernabeu. He frustrated Real Madrid to the nth degree. He used the Sergio Ramos suspension to full effect. He brought that ball very, very wide time and time again. And you could just see that those pinpoint passes that Alex likes to play, or like to play in and around the box, worked a treat. And it was only going to be a matter of time until Real Madrid got broken down time and time again.
Real did have an opportunity very early on to Rafa Varane, but Ajax pounced 2 goals in the first 20 minutes, and, well, it was tie in their favour all of a sudden. And again, they did pull one back to Asensio. There were a couple of controversial moments which we'll explore shortly, but let's break this down statistically before we get into the match itself, because this is the element here where whether or not history ever has an impact on the outcome of a match, well, records are there to be broken, and this is the case here for Real Madrid. So just some of these numbers, Rick, before we get into the analysis of the 90 minutes in this second leg. For Real Madrid, 4 straight home losses, the first time since 2004. They've failed to reach the Champions League quarterfinals for the first time since 2009-10. Their heaviest ever home defeat in a European knockout game. And they've lost as many games this season as the last 2 combined. On top of that, 1,392 days. It's the first time Real Madrid are out of a UEFA Champions League competition. For Santiago Solari now, does he stay or does he go?
For me, well, it seemed as if he started the tie as being in pole position to stay. But you don't lose 2 Clásicos, you don't lose to CSKA Moscow, you don't lose from such a commanding lead in a 2-legged tie in a UEFA Champions League. There's one answer and one answer only. Adios, amigos.
Well said. I think that Solari, let's open with Solari here, because this is one of the key factors now. We know Real Madrid have had a very difficult season on the coaching front. Losing Zinedine Zidane, bringing in Lopetegui in those really poor circumstances, which we also predicted wouldn't go well. And now Solari coming from the youth ranks into here. Which way do you look at it? You say he should go. When should he go? Because, yes, he should go, I agree, but when? Well, I don't think everyone's sold on exactly when. Does he go now? Do they sack him tomorrow to give an opportunity for the players to rediscover something and, well, under who knows, and plan for next season? Or do they just keep him on for the remainder of the campaign and then perhaps decide who the right man for the job is, a la Man United, at the end of the season?
I think the problem is you have to keep him all the way through. If you sack him now and you bring in somebody, maybe that person may not even be the right fit. That's the first thing. We don't know what Perez and co have in mind in terms of who they want to try and get to coach this team. And the only the only person they could honestly get at the moment is somebody who doesn't have a club. So that means you would exclude people like Mauricio Pochettino, currently, of course, at Tottenham. We'll talk about them later. You exclude people like Max Allegri at the moment. He's obviously at Juventus. These are two names that have been linked quite strenuously over the last season or so. So you couldn't bring in any of those people, and therefore you have to, unfortunately, keep Santiago Solari at least until the end of May.
So you think they'll be cutting themselves short in terms of their options? If
Absolutely.
Well, look, there have been reports saying that Jose Mourinho is the man that they want. They're saying that Mourinho is the target for Perez and for Real Madrid. He is available. In the case of a Mourinho, do you give him the opportunity to come in tomorrow, work with what he's got tomorrow with nothing to lose and nothing to gain, and work out what he wants, what pieces he wants for next season before the inevitable happens, and that is Real Madrid sell and splash the cash on what they want to bring in? Would you favour that, or would you just favour the opposite number where you see the season play out and look to everyone at the start of next season?
I think you have to sort of look to everyone at the start of next season. I think if you bring in Mourinho now, I think you might be hurting your chances going forward. So I think you have to wait and see how the whole season plays out. You might see another player or two come through the system. You might see a changing in attitude now that essentially Real Madrid cannot win any more titles. You have to, I think, let the season play through. Bringing in 3 managers over the course of 9 months, for me, that's not a good look at all. That's not a position that any club want themselves in at this stage. For me, keep Solari. You said you were going to stick with him until the end of the season. Give him time to prove himself. Sure, he's had the losses that have now hurt him, but there's only one way, and this is the only one.
Can't and won't be the manager next season of Real Madrid, Solari. So, look,
he'll be the Castilla coach. He'll go back to the youth team, I think. He
won't be the senior coach. I think if they are sold on Mourinho, which if reports are correct, then they are, then I think that they should make the decision tomorrow, because they have nothing to lose under Jose Mourinho coming in. If Mourinho comes in at the start of next season, the problems continue, the pressure will be on Mourinho from day dot, and that could be a significant issue for this Los Blancos outfit.
Similar to Julen Lopetegui.
Exactly the same. So I feel if they bring Mourinho in tomorrow and Solari moves on, well then Mourinho has nothing to lose for 3 months, and the 3 months that follow is the off-season, and he has 6 months to plan. Keep in mind as well, Mourinho isn't coming from the best form of his career at United. He has a nice opportunity to rediscover his best form, who he wants to be part of that next generation for Real Madrid. I think if Real Madrid want Mourinho, sack Solari tomorrow, bring in Mourinho the day after, and I think that will be the best way for them to proceed. But I'm sure there are many out there who disagree with that. I'm sure there are many out there who disagree with Mourinho being the right man for Los Blancos, particularly with Pochettino being linked, Antonio Conte being linked, and more. But a very interesting discussion, which we'll pick up later on, no doubt.
Let's get into the game, though.
Talk to me about the game. Talk to me about the game now, because 4-1, for any football neutral out there, this is as entertaining a match as we've seen for some time. So much drama, a few controversial moments. But again, let's start with Ajax. Sure. In the end, what a performance. And what a performance from a side that, well, they are one of the young up-and-coming clubs in world football.
And it's going to be sad to see them picked apart a little bit in the upcoming summer. Obviously, we know about Frankie de Jong and his imminent move to Barcelona, but you don't just wonder, a few of them, where they might go. It'd be nice to see if Ten Hag and Ajax decide to sort of stick with this crop and maybe nurture them over the next 2 to 3 seasons, and you might start to see a couple of opportunities maybe to make another quarter-final in maybe a season or so's time. But unfortunately, you feel that this is going to be the end of this emerging crop of Dutch players moving forward.
Yeah, a number of the pundits across multiple broadcasts were saying post-match, here we go, changing of the guard, as we said off the top today. Real Madrid now a fallen giant. Ajax, the club of the future. Well, De Jong already gone to Barcelona, and De Ligt, you would imagine, will leave Ajax for, well,
someone.
Either Juve, Barca, PSG, according to reports. So maybe not the case for Ajax, unfortunately, but nevertheless a remarkable achievement for a very proud club. But 4-time European winners
They are.
of this competition. So incredible for them, and well, dare to dream for Ajax, because they're into the final 8, and all of a sudden they'll fancy themselves against anyone given their attacking flair. Peter's come through and said, love your predictions with Ajax, total domination and free play football with lots of chances in both legs.
Well, this could have been a 10-5 just quickly.
Exactly
go
right.
through.
But you were big on Ajax for the entirety of the 2 legs, and even again, as I said, when the draw came out, we were confident they could cause an upset, which they have. What was it really about Ajax, though, that you had seen or that you were confident about coming up against this Real Madrid side?
For me, I was big on that midfield, and I've spoken about it time and time again. Whether it be Ziyech, whether it be Van der Beek, whether it be Mazraoui coming in from the right, whether even Nicola Tagliafico from the left, you throw in all these elements together. Even there's a Holy Beam in Lasse Schöne to an extent. They had the ability and the capability to constantly pick apart, especially the wing-backs of the opposition. That Bayern Munich 2-legged match, of course, in the Champions League group stage, that gave me the insight that I felt, okay, if Ajax are able to dismantle a team that has generally been defensively focused first, work the ball out by distributing it out from the back, and then look to a couple of targets up front to finish off, if they're able to do that against Bayern Munich, they will be able to do this against the Real Madrid. And then when the pieces started to fall about the Marcelo Reguilon, the new coach as well, not having time to implement a strategy really at that stage, I thought this was going to be the one big result that was going to go from the get-go, and that's exactly what has happened.
Marco's come through and said, what a masterclass performance from Tadic. Southampton would be kicking themselves silly. Dusan Tadic, his numbers incredible. Near 40 goal involvements in the same amount of games this season. He's been as influential as any player in this competition, and obviously in the Eredivisie as well. How good was he tonight?
First player to score 6 goals since Jari Lippmann and Mark Overmars for Ajax in a Champions League season. That says it all, doesn't it? Nothing more needs to be said than that. Those spins that he was doing, the one that will get a lot of recognition is the one that ultimately was laid off for the second goal. That was incredible. I haven't seen that happen against the Real Madrid outfit for some years. I mean, there's always been that defensive pressure applied on the player, but he had no fear, went out there, knew obviously there was a task at hand, and look at him now. Now we're going to speak about him as being a player that, yes, went to England, yes, may not have had a great influence, but he's gone outside of that big bubble of the English Premier League, redeveloped, re-strengthened, and now look at him. We're going to praise him forever and ever.
There was that one interesting moment, controversial, some are saying, for his goal. Now, he was very influential in this match, undoubted best player on the park for me in terms of what he had to offer.
Goal and 2 assists.
2 assists and a goal. And we're going to get to some ratings that came out of France shortly just to back that up. But for Tadic, his goal. Now, a stunning finish, stunning strike. There was VAR, VAR was utilised here, and it did appear that the ball may have crossed the line.
The touch line.
So this was in the build-up to the goal, in case you missed it. Fine finish it was.
Superb.
However, should it have been ruled out? Because the VAR did take 2.5 or so minutes. It did take
even longer.
Perhaps longer. It did take some sting out of the game. But this was at a very important period because at this stage it was 2-0. The game was in the balance still. Real knew if they scored, well, anything could happen still. They were still in the game. It was actually quite interesting at 2-0 because at 2-0, had Ajax scored the next goal, Real required 3 goals to win the tie. Had Real scored, the match was heading to extra time. So it was at a really delicate period, and hence why it took 2.5, 3+ minutes to make this decision. In the end, they adjudged that the ball had not crossed the line in its entirety, and the goal stood. The commentators across the world were all convinced that it was out and that it would definitely be cancelled, but it wasn't. The goal stood. Ajax led 3-0, and in the end, they win the tie. But your thoughts on that incident?
Ball crossed the line. For me, that's what had happened. There were a couple of clear angles that show that there was white paint in between the ball and, of course, that line. I hate to say it, but this one is a monumental stuff-up by the video assistant referee. Sure, there is another angle that does show it. I think there was a substitute player on the bench that sort of covered the line, and so you didn't get that angle very well. It may have actually been the player on the ground as the ball was trying to be played back into the field of play. But for me, that goal shouldn't have stood. Maybe there was a little bit of the whole Tagliafico first goal from the first leg in that, whereby Ajax didn't get their goal that went in. Mm-hmm. So maybe this was a little bit of, well, we stuffed up that first one. We won't stuff up this
little
time.
leveler against
Real. A little bit of a leveler out.
We haven't seen too many of these decisions go against Real Madrid. And
are you insinuating something here, Adrian?
We've seen it. We've discussed this in depth over the journey, but there have been many significant decisions go in favour of Los Blancos. Not in this case. For me, I think the VAR got this one right, though, because it may be a little controversial, but while there did appear to be that one camera view where the ball did appear to have crossed the line in its entirety, it wasn't, I feel, 100% clear cut. And again, this is a really murky, dangerous area for the VAR because, again, clear and obvious is its ruling, but it's not always
clear and obvious, yeah.
Exactly. Now, in the case of a ball crossing a line, normally that is clear and obvious. I personally don't know why they don't have cameras going down the line as they do, for example, on the goal line.
I'm surprised there's no goal line technology in and around the pitch itself.
It makes complete sense that this now will become a factor. As we see in many other sports, this should have cameras on the lines because this will become an issue, no doubt. But again, the whole clear and obvious nature of the VAR is the problem here because the clear and obvious nature of a ball crossing a line is normally clear cut. Now, the reason I'm in favour of the VAR here is because, well, there wasn't a camera that clearly showed, there wasn't a Hawkeye camera that clearly showed the ball had crossed the line. So I'm okay with the decision. But again, when we're talking about handballs in the area, potential fouls in the lead-up, that's still down to interpretation. So I think the VAR got this one right, but I do think that this will ensure that UEFA and World Football governing bodies will address this issue of not having cameras on the sideline similarly to the goal line technology.
Now we're having to take this whole VAR and goal line technology and throwing technology to another level, aren't we?
Absolutely.
When we introduced VAR in the middle of a season, this was the argument. The integrity of the competition goes away a little bit. Now we're having to discuss, well, we've introduced VAR and some of the clear and obvious things haven't been picked up. There are faults already in that system. Let's apply more technology to try and rectify those errors that VAR was attempting to clarify in the first place.
It's a mess. It's a mess. But look, I think in the end, if there is a level of technology as we have on the goal line, those decisions will be made in 1 second as the goal line technology goes. So I think that's
the buzzing of the referee's wrist is usually what it does.
Immediately. There'll be no 2.5 minute wait trying to look at camera angles that, well, yeah, it does look like the ball has trickled over the line, but we can't be 100% sure. So I think in the end they've made the right call, but that needs to change because if that was for a UEFA Champions League final for the
God forbid.
My word. That would have taken 10 plus minutes to decide because they know that they're determining history there. Fortunate in this case, Real Madrid were already, well, again, it was an important time for that goal, but look, in the end, Ajax definitely deserved to go.
And there was even a period just before that goal that Tadic ultimately scored. You could just start to sense that Real Madrid realised the enormity of the task in front of them.
That's right.
And maybe you started to see a little bit of a shift in the style of play. They started to go through Bale and Asensio a little bit more. They tried to link in Modric with a few of the attackers as well. So there was that little bit of a shift. But then obviously when the 3-0 went in, great finish nonetheless. Yeah, unfortunately, it was just too much and too hard and too little too late.
Well, they were the better team in the first 15 minutes of that second half. They were the better team in the first 5 minutes of the game. They were the better team for 20 out of the 90 minutes for me on the night. And unfortunately, early goals in both halves cost them.
Simple.
All right, let's go to Real Madrid now. Where to from here? Because this match, well, let's start with the play that wasn't there first, Sergio Ramos.
Can we slap him out?
You can slap him out. Go for it. So, Sergio Ramos not there. Sergio Ramos making it clear that he picked up a yellow in the first leg purposely. Ridiculous, because how could you... Again, we said this at the time, but how could you disrespect an Ajax team that took it right up to Bayern Munich and others in the group stage? That has now ultimately cost Real Madrid a spot in the quarterfinals for the first time in a decade. He's suspended in the league. He's suspended in this competition. He is the captain of this club. He is the most important player in this club. There's no doubt about it. But that is not what a leader does. And in the end, his absence, yes, one player out, they still conceded 4, but his absence has cost them this tie. I've got no doubt about that. He's there in this match. Real Madrid, I feel, advanced just.
I used the word at the start of the show, but I'll use it again. Has 4 letters, has a H, a U, a G, and an E in it. Huge! That was a huge miss for Real Madrid. You just talked about it there. A leader on the pitch who's able to galvanise the team when it is hard, at its hardest and it's at its most down. Where was that? We needed to see it in these 90 minutes. And unfortunately, his absence has cost his team very, very much so. You've also got to think, he's not there for the opening match day. Should Real Madrid qualify for the Champions League automatically next season? If they go through the group stage, well, that's another story altogether. But they're not in prime position to go through at this stage. Yeah, they've got a bit of a gap, but they've got a few things they still need to work out. But no Ramos, and I've said this before, we said it yesterday, no Ramos, no Real Madrid.
Yep.
I did a quick bit of research. Now, I've been banging on about this record without Ramos, how many wins did Real Madrid get? You know what the stat is?
What is the stat?
7%. 7%
of matches they win without him.
Without him.
Wow.
So you talk about somebody who is the heart and soul, the fabric of this club.
7%. Is that across
all competitions this is?
This season?
All competitions. That's his career. 7% of matches without Sergio Ramos is what Real Madrid go on to win.
So you're a wise man if you were tipping Ajax to win this morning, Rick.
Very wise, thank you very much. Nonetheless, we don't talk with our bank books and our wallets on here on FNR, Football Nation Radio. Only when we talk about betting tips, we do a little bit.
Of course, our friends there, bettingtips.com.
But nonetheless, it just goes to show what are Real Madrid made of if they don't have their captain in this team.
Well, not much at the moment.
It seems to me that's the problem.
It's a huge problem, and his replacement, Nacho, sent off right at the end, 2 yellow cards in the space.
Silly man. What a silly man.
But again, he alongside Rafa Varane, who's one of the best central defenders in world football.
We were touting him as being a potential Ballon d'Or winner at one stage, based on what he did last season.
But it hasn't been the case. Reguilon at left back ahead of Marcelo again.
Well, there's the other talking point.
Well, he's gone. Marcelo is not playing for Real Madrid in the Champions League ever again, in my opinion.
No.
He was... I'm not going to say look disinterested, because when Asensio did score and pull one back, he was celebrating harder than most. But Marcelo is now completely on the way out of this club, I feel. He's not getting any younger. A new manager will come in. If Mourinho returns, maybe that changes that. But Marcelo is certainly one of these veterans of this club who will make way for, well, this changing of the guard for Real Madrid, I feel.
Yeah, no, I think you're right there. But I would have wondered how Marcelo would have gone in this match. I really do, because had he been up against, of course, on the right, I think it was Mazraoui at the time. Mazraoui was bombing forward. He was very much... Well, obviously, he scored in the first leg to obviously get Ajax still and remain in the tie, but he bombed forward a whole heap of times. I would have felt Marcelo wouldn't have tracked back quick enough or done that enough. So I feel, it's a 50-50 call. Reguilon, what would he have added? Well, he didn't add much, unfortunately. But he did keep Mazraoui a little bit quieter than I would have anticipated. I would have felt he would have had a little bit more of an option and a little bit more of an influence on the match.
Well, Marcelo hasn't played in the last 4 games, and he's only played 1 of the last 7. And that was the 2-1 defeat against Girona at home. That was the first of their 4 straight losses at home. It just is an incredibly poor time for Solari, for Real Madrid, and for these players who are used to just great success. It's incredible to think that they have not won a home match since a 3-0 win against Alaves back in early February. It's just a really poor time now, and these stars may move. Of course, Luka Modric at the start of the season was close to Inter, according to reports. Casemiro was one of the worst players on the park today. Where is he at? Toni Kroos, he's almost 30.
Do you do the whole clean out?
That's what I'm asking. Well, where do you start here? Thibaut Courtois, another horror night in goal. Courtois, again, getting the nod over Keylor Navas. There was no point in that acquisition for me. It just hasn't worked out. Up top, Gareth Bale, underwhelming again. Asensio scores, but Asensio has been nowhere near his best. Isco, not part of Solari's plans.
And he's not even part of the future at this stage.
There doesn't appear to be a future at Real Madrid at the moment. And sure, Perez and Real will break the bank for everyone and anyone, but again, their top target, according to reports, Eden Hazard. We don't know what the future holds for Chelsea. There may have been a change, as per your news headlines, which we'll get to shortly, but he may not be an option. Tottenham, Eriksen's been linked, Kane's been linked, but Tottenham are flying. Tottenham are moving into a new stadium.
That's right.
The point being, at this point in time, it's more appealing to be at a Tottenham, perhaps, than a Real Madrid, and who would ever have thought that? And if they can't get hold of these key Premier League stars that they have been linked to, well, who else is out there for them to go after? And it doesn't appear to be a bright future ahead in the short term, at least for Real.
We spoke about it with Bayern Munich in August, if you recall back that far in your memory here on Afternoons on FNR. We were saying, what is the lure about going to Bayern Munich when they're more or less going to run away with the league. They'll be half competitive, but not ultimately win the UEFA Champions League.
At least they're winning things.
But at least they're winning things, and they're still in the hunt. What is the lure to go to Real Madrid? You've sacked you've sacked one coach. You more or less, I think, will sack a second coach. You're third in the league. You're out of the Champions League, the one title that you've really cared for over the last few seasons. Why do you want to go to Los Blancos?
Yeah, and again, knowing that realistically you're a mile behind Barcelona in terms of winning a league, there isn't too much to play for. So interesting times.
And when you talk about miles behind Barcelona, look at the legacy over the last decade both those teams. Barcelona have won 7 of the last 10 La Ligas. Mm-hmm. They've won about 6 or 7, maybe even 8 of the Copa del Rey. They're obviously in the final now. Real Madrid, they balanced it out with 4 Champions League wins in the last 5 years. But it's not enough when you think about the lasting legacy beyond that.
And certainly with all the youngsters in that Barcelona squad, the future looks bright. Barcelona have transformed themselves magnificently. And they've done that in this period where Real Madrid have dominated in the Champions League. They've still maintained the domestic dominance, but Barcelona now, with Artur and De Jong, that's going to be one of the best midfields without a doubt.
And you're throwing Dembele as well.
Well, we talk up top, Dembele, of course, and Messi's still doing his thing, and they're complementing that right across the park, and they will bring in more youngsters. They've got some really promising youngsters coming through the ranks. Just doesn't appear to be the same at Real Madrid. I mentioned those player ratings from L'Equipe in France earlier. A very rare 10 out of 10 given to Dusan Tadic.
He should have been given an 11, to be honest.
10 out of 10 at the Bernabeu. De Ligt, the captain, with a 9, and then plenty of other players with an 8 in that match. Conversely, for Real, check out those numbers, Rick. 1 for Casemiro, 2 for Cruz.
I think some of them wore their actual jersey number as a player vote, to be perfectly honest, or even lower than what they normally do wear.
Region, Nacho, Cruz, Courtois with a 2 out of 10. So, look, in the end, a terrible, terrible night for Real Madrid. And a really poor season. Just gets a little poorer, and the future, we are not sure what it holds. But in the end, Ajax 4-1 winners at the Santiago Bernabeu, 5-3 winners on aggregate. They advance to the final 8 of the UEFA Champions League, and can they go all the way? Because look, we know majority of the ties aren't decided yet, but
no.
Confident PSG will go through tomorrow morning. Roma Porto is on a knife's edge, but either or for Ajax, I don't think that would pose too many headaches. Of course, will be tough, but they'd be confident. And then we know that in next week's fixtures, the big boys are waiting. There's Barca, Man City, Atletico, or Juve. There are some big teams that still remain. But I think Ajax, having eliminated Real and having taken it right up to Bayern Munich, they should not fear anyone.
Agreed. They're going to be the team that a lot of people will not want to get. Similar to, say, a Liverpool when the round of 16 draw came out, or an Atletico Madrid. Similar sorts here in the quarterfinal.
All right, looking forward to seeing how they get on, but we will get on to the other match that was played this morning.
There was another game, was there?
There was one other game. Not as entertaining, but as impressive a result. 4-0 win on aggregate for Tottenham. 1-0 winners in the second leg in Germany. Borussia Dortmund 0, Tottenham 1. This is as impressive, equally as impressive for me as what Ajax have done. Tottenham have taken care of one of the best attacks in world football and kept them goalless over 180 minutes, including a second leg where they simply had to go all out and score. Yes, Dortmund were the better team in the first half, Kane with a goal early in the second half, but for Tottenham to achieve this result against a team playing some really good football, not of late, but really good football this season, a wonderful achievement for Pochettino, particularly, whose pedigree and respect as a top coach in European football has just gone up another notch or 10 after this performance.
Maybe even a little bit longer, and even higher. But you've got to think about it. Tottenham didn't have too much form coming into this game.
No, neither team.
Neither did. And so we started to question, where are Tottenham at? I mean, they had 2 losses, of course. They had a draw against Arsenal in the North London derby, controversial as it may be. But then they also had 2 losses, of course, against Chelsea and Burnley in the Premier League. So the form line was not there whatsoever. So for Tottenham to really hold their nerve, in particular defensively, and then pounce, because that's what they did a lot, and they did it quite well in my eyes. They pounced, and then Harry Kane had that one chance, put it right past Roman Burki, the Dortmund goalkeeper, and through you go. That's 4 wins in a row now for Tottenham.
They are
in the Champions League against Borussia Dortmund.
They have taken it right up to Borussia Dortmund. Kane's goal scoring prowess against Dortmund continues. look, both teams not in the best form coming in, but Tottenham really, well, the 4-0 win, it's a class above, and it is surprising because this one was a 50-50 tie coming in. Tottenham have come out the other end, and similar to Ajax now. Again, they've taken it up to some very, very good teams. They eliminated Inter Milan in the group stage, of course. They took it up to Barcelona. They were with PSV in that group as well, and now eliminating Dortmund. Look, a favourable draw in the quarterfinals.
Who knows?
Who knows? Who knows? Are they good enough to mix it with the very best? Have we seen enough from Tottenham, as we have from Ajax, for example, to say, you know what, if they do draw a City, a PSG, a Barcelona, a Juventus, whoever it is, Atletico Madrid, are they capable of taking it right up to them? I think based on how good they are, yes, have we seen enough in this competition this season? We'll see. Probably not enough for me. I'm probably more positive about Ajax, but I think Spurs, where they're at the moment, another deep run here. The first time though they're in the quarterfinals since the start of the decade, but they have been consistent now in the Champions League under Pochettino, and that must be very pleasing for Spurs fans, despite the lack of silverware. Yeah. Now, I don't think silverware is a possibility in the Champions League this season, but then again, Kane, Dele Alli sort of come back in, Eriksen, they've got the quality there to mix it with the very best. So I am excited for them, but they do need to continue this form on the road because they did have 4 straight losses on the road in all competitions coming in. A rare road win here in terms of recent form. Tottenham win 1-0, 4-0 on aggregate. But my biggest question is, where on earth from here for Borussia Dortmund? Because their form domestically has been poor. They're out of the German Cup. They are now out of the Champions League. After what looked like it could have been an amazing season for them, they could end up without anything to their name after, an underwhelming start to 2019.
I think it's one thing and one thing only. I keep mentioning it when I do speak about Borussia Dortmund. It's the back four, in particular. It's the centre-back combination. 17 combinations now at centre-back used this season. Julian Weigl given the keys alongside Manuel Akanji. Why is your defensive midfielder not playing alongside your other defensive midfielder, might I ask? Julian Weigl is not a centre-back. He has been used by Lucien Favre, the Borussia Dortmund coach, in that role tonight, in arguably what would be your most important game of the season thus far. But, hang on, let me work this out.
Have a think, Rick.
You're 3-0 down in a Champions League tie, and you decide to play a little bit extra conservative and put your DM as your CB?
Doesn't make much sense.
Makes no sense to me.
To their credit, though, Dortmund, in terms of their approach, the first half they were dominant.
Oh, absolutely.
And they were denied by some wonderful saves.
And you could see the influence of Mario Götze in particular, Rafa Guerreiro, even Parker and Marco Reus as well. You could see the 4 of them were actually starting to link up quite well and split apart this Tottenham defence and get into those little pockets and have shots on target. If it wasn't for Hugo Lloris, this actually could have been a 3 or even a 2-0 result at half-time. Some of the saves he had to make,
which would have turned the tide.
They weren't very difficult, but they were very, very crucial in being made at the time he did make them. So this wasn't as simple as get the goals, put the pressure on Tottenham, and somehow you'll come back. Those chances needed to be taken. And unfortunately, Adrian, they weren't. They really weren't.
Well, Spurs took their chance because their one shot on target was a goal. And that was the difference in the end.
And that's all you need sometimes in these big two-legged ties.
Dortmund crash out. So we've got the league leaders in Germany and the reigning back-to-back-to-back champions in Europe crashing out in the same morning. Tottenham and Ajax go through. Realistically speaking, how far can Tottenham go now? Because they're into a quarter-final. There's nothing else to play for. They've obviously got a top 4 push. But, look, if they can maintain that form, surely they'll finish in the top 4 in England. Because taking care of the Bundesliga lead is no mean feat. We know they've got a battle on their hands in that competition. But this is really the competition they can focus on fully now. And we know that there are some other big teams out there, particularly City and Liverpool. Barcelona not so much, PSG not so much, Juventus not so much, but there are other big teams in other competitions that are fighting for silverware domestically. Bayern Munich certainly won in Germany. Can Tottenham, who are just in a top 4 battle, which if they just continue to pick up points they should be fine, can they maybe leverage off the fact that others need to focus elsewhere and on cup competitions and whatnot and really put their eggs in this Champions League basket and go deep and maybe spring another surprise?
Let me remind you, 12 months ago, where were Real Madrid on the La Liga table?
They were in the mix for the top 4 battle.
They were. What are Tottenham at the moment?
In the mix for the top 4 battle, they're third.
Now, Tottenham are out of all the other competitions as well. They weren't in the FA Cup, if I remember correctly, at that time. Real Madrid, same thing. They weren't involved in the Copa del Rey. I'm not ruling it out. I really am not. If you haven't worked out what I'm trying to hint at here, Tottenham have the opportunity. There'll be a team out of 8, so they have a 12.5% chance to make it through to the final and lift the trophy.
Yep.
They will be working it. Sure, if they somehow get themselves in the battle for third a lot more, if they happen to slip up one more time, and maybe those teams below them, the Arsenals, the Man U's, the Chelseas, get that win and claw that gap back a little bit more, you might have to wonder, without that squad depth, can Tottenham compete on both fronts week in, week out when so much is at stake? But at this stage, and as it stands, it is a 3-4 point gap at the moment. It's just enough, with enough breathing space in between as well, to leverage one off the other and go further in the Champions League than I think in the English Premier League.
Well, this weekend in the Premier League, they are away to Southampton. They'll need to continue their good road form. But it's a nice weekend for them because Arsenal meet Man U, Arsenal 4th and 5th. So either or both of those teams drop points in that match. Tottenham get the win. You're starting to look at, again, a 6-7 point buffer, and that really could be enough for Spurs to focus fully on the Champions League with just 9 rounds remaining in the Premier League season. I like where Tottenham are at. Fabio Capello, of course, former manager of everyone, Capello these days, but was a pundit on Sky Sport in Italy and actually said that he predicted Tottenham to be a semi-finalist in this competition at the start of the season, and he's obviously very happy with where they are at the moment. So there is some support for the way that they play. I think the big thing to take away from Tottenham's demolition here of Dortmund is Mauricio Pochettino. And again, let's look at him to close out this match. What does the future hold for Pochettino? Real will be looking for a new coach. He is on the radar of Real Madrid, and regardless of Real or not, there are top clubs out there who would be silly not to have a look at him. Tottenham moving into a new stadium. It's a very important time for the club. They need Champions League football. He's done wonders with this club, but he hasn't delivered. He hasn't delivered trophies, and he's really delivered in terms of
he's built the team up.
He's maximised what he's been able to achieve with this group, but he hasn't won silverware. And as per players, similar for him, he will want to get his hands on the very biggest trophies in world football. So surely that is a factor for him. But then again, he has come this far with limited resources in comparison to others. Maybe he wants to see it through. So look, I'm not sure, having not spoken to him personally, I'm not sure.
Do you want his number?
I'd love to have a chat with him because I'm not sure what the future holds for him. But just on the outside, from what we know, you have to think that Tottenham certainly need another promising run in this competition. They took it right up to Juventus last season.
Correct.
In the round of 16. Very narrowly eliminated in the second leg at Wembley. The form has been there, but I think that knowing Real Madrid will come calling, they need to have a magical end to the campaign.
You just have to wonder with Pochettino, is his mindset ready to go and take on another project? That's where I think
well, if the project is the dream of Real Madrid, think again, we often look at coaches in different light to players. Players' careers are limited. Obviously, coaching, you can coach a lot longer. But if the dream option to coach Real Madrid comes about, if it is his dream...
If that is his dream, of course.
Well, that's hard to say no to. Particularly at a point where you can really work with a new squad, as opposed to taking over someone else's squad. Lopetegui and Solari have already failed at that.
Of course.
So you get now... The reason we said Lopetegui would fail at Madrid was because how can you succeed after someone's won 3 straight Champions League with this group? You need to continue that trend. If you don't, you will fail. Now Real are at rock bottom. If Pochettino comes in and brings them from rock bottom to semi-rock bottom, well, that's an improvement. And I think that it's the perfect time for a manager, hence why I feel Real need to be very wise, to come in, take charge of a club and bring them back to the pinnacle of world football.
Would he get carte blanche? Because that's what you almost start to need to do with Real Madrid. I don't want to bring the conversation back, but we spoke about needing to, maybe clear out the decks a little bit, move on a few players, maybe cash in if you can. Does Pochettino want to take over a team when, he might be given carte blanche, but he's going to be given a lower grade of players than the currently Santiago Solari has even had?
It's hard to say. It's hard to say. We don't know who's going to come in, but we know players will come in. I am fearful, though, for Tottenham, if Pochettino does go to Madrid, that could mean the end for them.
Could.
Because the stars could join.
It could. It could. You just have to wonder how many would go across from England to Spain. That would be the big query.
I'd say definitely one, possibly more.
But if Pochettino does decide to stay, Daniel Levy has to spend the cash. He has to open up the wallet here and buy some players. Sure, you can get through one entire season, winter and summer, without bringing in anybody. Pochettino has clearly proven this. But you can't go through two.
No.
You can't go through three. You have to eventually bring in a couple of players. And we know that Toby Alderweireld is on the edge of leaving Tottenham. He hasn't signed that deal. So there has to be a defender that has to come in at some stage.
Definitely.
So he has to open up the wallet, in my eyes. Firstly, to strengthen this team, maybe you provide some extra depth, but certainly, secondly, and probably not as important, to probably keep Mauricio Pochettino.
That will be discussed in great depth, I'd imagine, as the weeks continue. For Tottenham, though, they are through to the quarterfinals of the UEFA Champions League for the first time in the best part of a decade. So well done to Spurs. 2010-11 was the last time they went through. They eliminated Milan 1-0 on aggregate in the round of 16, and they, of course, were very unfortunate last season. But they take care of the Bundesliga leaders 4-0 on aggregate. Their fate in the quarterfinals will be learned next Friday, March the 15th, when the draw for that round is complete.
And Ivan has come through. He's actually said, I can see Christian Eriksen playing in Spain. He would do well there. Well, he probably will. He probably will do very well.
Again, we know the three that have been linked, Eriksen, Dele Alli and Kane, and I'd be very surprised if one, if not two, maybe three were to move there, regardless of Pochettino. But if Pochettino goes there, well, it could
the link gets even stronger and stronger.
And Real will spend, and Real will have a new man at the top. It feels right, but again, we don't know what's going on behind the scenes. 2 matches from the Champions League done and dusted. There are 6 round of 16 second legs to come. 2 tomorrow morning, which we'll touch on now to close out the first hour, but full previews of these 2 fixtures to come to start the second hour, of course, streaming live via our app and our website, footballnationradio.com. Of course, this program and all our programs here on FNR Football Nation Radio, proudly brought to you by Lanco Group, your business partner for engineering solutions. Rick, PSG, Man United, Porto, Roma, the 2 matches tomorrow morning. Let's start with the match in Paris. 2-0. PSG, looking good.
Tie over.
Well,
let me declare it now. Tie over.
We called it from the start. We did say that prior to the United run, I had already ruled United out. But after the first leg, PSG with the 2 goals away, this would be a miracle if United were to go to the Parc des Princes and defeat PSG by 2 clear goals.
Now, I'm not saying that Manchester United don't have a chance of doing that, but
I am.
No, I give
They're
them.
not. Do you feel they can go there and defeat PSG?
They had a chance up until I saw who the outs are and who the players that are incredibly doubtful and will miss.
Well, we know Pogba's suspended.
That's
of course.
one. That's
the
easy one. That's the easy one because we knew he picked up a yellow card and he had an accumulation. But let me run through this list. Ready?
Go for it.
Nemanja Matic, Phil Jones, Jesse Lingard, Juan Mata, Ander Herrera, Alexis Sanchez, Antonio Valencia, Matteo Darmian, Anthony Martial. That's basically a starting 11 if you work it out, and you might have a bit of an irregular XI. How on earth is Ole Gunnar Solskjaer going to go to the Parc des Princes and play a team that has been very, very difficult to score against, let alone break down and get a win, when you have basically that list of players all not on the dugout, let alone on the sidelines?
It won't happen. Of course, PSG still without a couple of stars in their own right, Neymar and Edinson Cavani. Good news for PSG that Neymar will return to Paris for this game. He is nearing a return to full fitness.
And Cavani has been training as well, so he might get a sub role.
They won't risk him, but he may be included in the matchday squad, but they won't risk him, I feel. But look, it's good to see Neymar back. He's been partying in Brazil. It's incredible what they get away with. He's been at Carnival in Brazil, Rick, which is a massive festival in Brazil, partying for days despite recovering from an issue. He returns to Paris for this second leg. But look, their squad, their projected lineup for this match: Buffon in goal, Kere, Thiago Silva, Kimpembe, Bernat, Verratti, Marquinhos, Dani Alves, Draxler, Di Maria, Mbappe. That 11 up against the United side with all those key outs, as you mentioned. This is going one way and one way only, and I'd be surprised if United even get on the score sheet here, let alone win by a couple. But how do United approach the second leg? Because look, they are still in the tie. We've seen stranger results in the this morning and in previous seasons, of course. But how does Solskjaer and United, how do they approach this match?
I think they have to approach it similarly to what we saw in patches from the first leg. Try and get in behind Juan Bernat on the left and try and expose him, because they weren't going to get anywhere when they tried to open up Dani Alves or even Thomas Meunier on those couple of occasions that they were on the left. So for me, go down that left flank, that right wing if you are a Manchester United supporter and attacking, and if you can get in behind him, you might have a couple of chances to score, because Thiago Silva, Marquinhos, they were very, very, very good in that first leg. So you have to try and hope that you can expose the one weakness, the one very big weakness that PSG do have in defence, and that is via him.
United expected to line up with De Gea, Young, Lindelof, Smalling, Shaw, Fred, McTominay, Pereira, Dalot, Lukaku and Rashford. Lukaku, of course, back into some decent goal-scoring form of late. Rashford, clearly the player who will have to be key to unlocking this PSG back four, but I just can't see too many match winners in that squad. And with that injury list, as you mentioned, Jones out through illness, and again, a different look 11 here. I feel their approach needs to be conservative. Try and play on the counter. Sit back and counter. If you need to go late, you go. But I think their approach has to be conservative. They're just not good enough to take on PSG from minute one. Absorb some pressure. Try get them on the counter attack. Take a 0-0 into half time. Maybe try pluck one in the first half and then go all out in the second half. But I just don't see where multiple goals will come from in this game against that PSG side. And keeping them goals will be very difficult with, of course, Mbappe in good touch as always. But
could this become a how many?
Should they get one?
Should PSG maybe get one, say, in the first, say, 25, 30 minutes? Could it then start to open up? Because then we know Manchester United need to go out and score about 4 or 5 to even have a chance to progress through. Could this become maybe, or could we see the floodgates start to open and then this become one of those results that I love to speak about every now and then? How many goals can that team, PSG, score?
I think so. I'm actually going to predict PSG to win this match 3-0. I think they will be far too strong for United. But again, the PSG have got themselves into a perfect position where they deserve to be in this position. They were a class above in that first leg. They won the group of death in the group stage. They deserve to be heavy favourites to go through. And I think it will be a very comfortable win for the Parisians, who will welcome back Neymar and very likely Cavani, of course, in the quarterfinals. Neymar still touch and go for that first leg, but again, they are well placed at the moment, and in a season where they simply must win this competition.
Agreed.
This is perfect timing for them. But PSG to win comfortably, but bigger tasks ahead. Again, their fate to be learned should they progress next Friday in the competition. But your score prediction for this one? Can United score at the Parc des Princes?
I think they can get one. But I'm still going to say 3-1 PSG to advance, of course, 5-1 on aggregate.
Okay.
Yours?
Yeah, I've got 3-0. 3-0, 5-0 on aggregate. I think they'll be far too strong. And if they do get that first goal, of course, that will be that for you. United. If United try and play conservatively but concede, well, then they know they need to go for it, and it will just open up. And I think Mbappe and Di Maria could be far too good on the night. But looking forward to that match. Of course, United need to win by a couple of goals to progress. The other tie tomorrow, probably more interesting in terms of how this one is poised, and it is because Roma, who were by far the better team for 80 minutes of the first leg, they led 2-0, but Porto pulled one back late on, and it finished 2-1. Now, Porto, with that away goal, knowing that they go home and they must win against Roma, I think both sides will be content with where they're at. Roma probably the more disappointed of the two, knowing they conceded late on with Adriano Lopez scoring 11 minutes from time in that first leg. Who is the more confident team, though, coming in, knowing that, well, for Roma, a draw will see them advance. For Porto, basically any win will see them progress unless Roma score multiple goals and they win by a single goal line. But who do you feel is more confident heading into this second leg?
Porto. One word only. They bring it back home. They want to try and erase those memories from last season when they had that round of 16 match against Liverpool and lost 5-0. They've got this away goal that you mentioned a moment ago, but they also get back their key striker. For me, when Moussa Marega injured himself ahead of the first leg, I thought, okay, Roma will win this. This one's a lay-down misère. But now that they get him back, Kostas Manolas is going to have his hands incredibly full for the entire 90 minutes. And I think that's how the match will be dictated and played out. The winner of that battle will see their team go through to the next round.
I couldn't agree anymore. I think that the battle between Marega and the central defenders of Roma, this is where it will be decided.
And it's surprising that it's not at the other end, between Edin Dzeko and the likes of either Eder Militao or Pepe or any of these players down back, Alex Telles as well. It's that all the attention is focused on the Manolas versus Marega battle.
Absolutely. Look, the reality here is that Manolas has been unwell and he has been injured in the last few weeks. Manolas is clearly the best central defender that Roma have, but Manolas has not been at his best this season. Now, Porto did lose at the weekend 1-2 at home to Benfica in a massive match in Portugal. Of course, in the Primeira Liga there. A match where I feel that they did have one eye on the Champions League despite losing their lead atop of the standings. But this is the match right now which will determine their season. You are right. Last season will still sing. They come home here with a massive opportunity to, after winning the group, get through to the quarterfinals. Marega v the central defenders is key because Roma have been so poor defensively, and we've seen it in recent games, particularly in their recent meeting at the weekend.
We even just saw it on the weekend, you're right. Derby della Capitale, 3-0 hammering.
A disaster. So both teams come into this second leg off the back of some good form, but then off the back of very disappointing defeats against serious rivals.
Derby rivals, basically.
Roma were appalling, a 3-0 loss, and defensively, well, they were nowhere near it. Fazio, who isn't expected to start in this game, had a very poor match in that 1-1. Jesus started beside him. Both those two players are set to be dropped, according to reports, with Manolas and Marcano coming in. Now, are they the players that are going to be able to hold out one of the informed strikers in world football? I'm not sure. No. And for that reason, I'd like to throw out a curveball here, Rick. I would personally like to see, in this match, one player and one player only start in the centre of defence. And it's not Marcano, who of course is coming up against his former team in Porto. It's not Manolas, who's been in doubt with injuries and illness recently. But it's the captain, Daniele De Rossi. Now, Daniele De Rossi has been solid this season in the heart of midfield, but he also has been found out against a few teams, both domestically and in Europe, and has had some pretty average performances at times. Given he's getting on in age, given the fact that we have seen him play defensively before, given the fact that he is the heart and soul of this Roma side, I believe that Daniele De Rossi should partner whoever in the centre of defence. We've seen him do it for country before. We've seen him do it at times for club. I think that is something that Di Francesco should consider, given the quality in the middle of the park through some of these emerging young Italian players for Roma. So that's something which I'd like to see. We will explore that in more depth in the second hour. But just given how poor Roma were at the weekend against Lazio, they are going to drop the two defenders. I would like to see De Rossi shifted to the heart of defence.
It's not a bad idea when you think about it, just to provide a little bit more stability. And we know that Porto are going to go all out to try and get an early goal and maybe sort of put this tie back on a knife's edge a little bit more. So,
well, they get an early goal, they're going through.
It's not a
because they're through with the away goal.
It's not a bad little ploy to have. I just personally can't see it happening when there's so much at stake for not only Roma, but their coach will say Di Francesco.
Everything's on the line.
That's the thing. I just don't see it when push comes to shove and the wheat has to be started to be separated from the chaff. I can't see it ultimately happening. But it's not a bad idea to put to the Roma coach should he decide to go along with your idea.
Well, Porto expected to line up with Casillas in goal, Militao, Pepe, Felipe, Alex Telles. Again, that is a very strong defensive unit there, so hard enough to break down. Danilo, Herrera, Oliver, Corona, Brahimi, Marega up top, the big one. For Roma, Olsen in goal. Another shaky game for him at the weekend. How does he respond? Florenzi, Manolas, Marcano, Kolarov defensively. Cristante, De Rossi, Pellegrini in midfield. Zaniolo, Dzeko, El Shaarawy up top. Two very talented sides. Quality all over the park. Tough to pick a winner in this one, and for that reason I'm going to predict this will end all square. Porto 1, Roma 1, but with zero confidence whatsoever, because I have seen Roma and I have seen Italian clubs historically really throw in the towel after picking up an important win in the first leg. We saw Roma in the quarterfinals last season lose 4-1 at Barcelona and then win the reverse 3-0. Completely different approach. I think you'll see Di Francesco approach this very cautiously, and they will play to not concede. So I feel 1-1 this will end. I think the team that scored the first goal will actually go through, but I think 1-1 Roma to go through just on aggregate, but I'm saying that with zero confidence.
3-1 Porto to go through for me. I think
I wouldn't be surprised.
The Marega inclusion, I've harped on about it for the last 5 minutes, But when Adrian Lopez got that away goal in the first leg, tie over for me. It says to me that, unfortunately, Porto will concede 1, but that attack will just flourish that little bit more and get 3 and see them through. You got to remember, Roma's record away from home. It's utterly crap. Awful. Part of my language, but no good.
Awful. Porto have confirmed that they will approach it with no rush whatsoever. Coaching staff have spoken. They said we will relax ourselves into the game, but their approach will be key to how this match plays out, because Roma will certainly approach it very cautiously. I know that for a fact. Roma will defend and will sit back, hence why I feel De Rossi should play in the heart of defence, but we'll explore that in more depth in the second hour, because the first hour is done. Thank you as always for joining us on Facebook Live. Switch over now to our app or our website, footballnationradio.com, for all of the analysis and action in the second hour. We'll be taking your calls and tweets there as well. But thank you. Switch over now. Plenty more coming up after this short break. So stay tuned. This is Afternoons on FNR Football Nation Radio.
Radio with Adriano de Monte and Rick D'Andrea.